Hello, friends. Today we are going to discuss a very controversial and complex issue. Vladimir Putin. Many people describe Putin in different ways. Some say he is a strong leader, others say he is a dictator. But some commentators go even further in analyzing Putin's policies and strategies, describing him as the Adolf Hitler of the 21st century. But how accurate is this comparison? In today's video, we will explore this question. 1. Historical background: Hitler and the rise of Putin. Let us start by comparing the processes by which Hitler and Putin came to power. Hitler came to power in the midst of Germany's post-World War I economic and social crisis. The German people were deeply disillusioned by the heavy burdens of the Treaty of Versailles. It was at this point that Hitler burst onto the scene with the promise of restoring the lost pride of the German people. Putin came to power in the chaotic Russia of the 1990s. The collapse of the Soviet Union had greatly weakened Russia's power on the world stage. The Yeltsin era was characterized by economic collapse and widespread corruption. Putin promised his people to make Russia a strong nation again. Both leaders came to power by winning popular support in times of chaos and uncertainty. However, there are important differences in terms of their methods and objectives. 2. Ideological similarities and differences. From an ideological point of view, Hitler's Nazi ideology was based entirely on racial superiority and the concept of Lebensraum. The Holocaust and other ethnic cleansing policies were part of his effort to realize this ideology. Putin is a more ideologically complex figure. His basic ideology is based on Russian nationalism and the concept of the Russian world. Another concept that Putin frequently voices is the multipolar world order. According to him, a unipolar world dominated by the US and the West is unacceptable. Putin is trying to restore the former Soviet geography and Russia's historical spheres of influence. However, it is important to note that Putin's policies do not resort to Hitler's methods of ethnic cleansing or genocide. However, the war in Ukraine and its implications for the strengthening of the far right in some Western countries have fueled the debate on how dangerous Putin's ideology can be. 3. Leadership style and propaganda. It is undeniable that both leaders had powerful propaganda machines. Through the propaganda ministry led by Goebbels, Hitler succeeded in convincing the German people of the Nazi ideology. This propaganda, which penetrated every segment of society, strengthened Hitler's control over the people. Putin, on the other hand, skillfully uses modern means of communication. State-controlled media outlets and social media platforms are flooded with content supporting Putin's policies. In addition, the Kremlin is conducting disinformation campaigns at the international level, trying to impose its narrative on the world public opinion. Putin's propaganda has particularly focused on justifying Russia's actions in Ukraine. Russia's claim that it had cleansed Ukraine of Nazis ironically became a tool to hide the authoritarianism of Putin's own policies. 4. Foreign policy and expansionism. Hitler's foreign policy was based entirely on expansionism. He invaded Austria, Czechoslovakia, and Poland in order to expand Germany's living space. These policies sparked the Second World War. Similarly, Putin has pursued an aggressive foreign policy to expand Russia's sphere of influence. He intervened in Georgia in 2008, annexed Crimea in 2014, and launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. But there is a difference here. Putin usually defends these actions on the grounds of NATO expansion and threats to Russia's security. Despite Western sanctions and international outcry, Putin continues to pursue these policies. Just like Hitler, he draws the profile of a leader who ignores the reactions of the international community. However, it is possible to say that Putin is more cautious due to the presence of nuclear weapons. 5. Domestic politics and repressive government. In domestic politics, both leaders seem to have adopted an authoritarian style of rule, After coming to power, Hitler eliminated all opposition and established a totalitarian regime. Any dissent in Germany was brutally suppressed by the Gestapo and the SS. Putin similarly uses harsh methods to silence dissent. Opposition leaders are imprisoned, independent media outlets are shut down, and protests are violently suppressed. But unlike Hitler's totalitarian regime, Putin's repressive policies are more sophisticated. Today's modern technologies facilitate constant monitoring of citizens and control of information flows. 6. Economic policy and corruption. Economically, there are some parallels and differences. By reviving Germany's war industry, Hitler reduced unemployment and stabilized the economy, albeit briefly. However, this eventually turned into a war economy. Putin, on the other hand, adopted an economic model based on energy resources. Russia has generated huge revenues from gas and oil exports, but this model lacks long-term sustainability. Moreover, corruption has become rampant in Russia under Putin's rule. The enrichment of the oligarchs did not increase the economic well-being of the people. 7th, international reactions and isolation. Under Hitler, the international community was initially unresponsive to Germany's aggressive policies. The Munich Agreement led to further concessions to Hitler as part of a policy of appeasement. However, this policy failed, and Germany was dragged into a world war. Putin, on the other hand, faced international isolation, especially after the annexation of Crimea in 2014. The United States and the European Union imposed various sanctions against Russia. However, these sanctions did not deter Putin from his policies. On the contrary, they have led Russia to forge closer ties with China and other authoritarian regimes. 8. How valid is the analogy? While there are some similarities between Hitler and Putin, historical and contextual differences should not be overlooked. Hitler brought unprecedented destruction to world history with his ideology and policies. Although Putin similarly pursues authoritarian and expansionist policies, today's international balances and technological developments limit his methods and influence. At this point, there is no definitive answer to the question of whether Putin is the Hitler of the 21st century. However, it is clear that both leaders pursue similar strategies of authoritarianism, expansionism, and propaganda. We need to carefully analyze the consequences of such leadership to learn from history and prevent similar tragedies from happening again. In this video, we discussed the parallels between Putin and Hitler. What are your thoughts on this? Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.